All right, so you've been out to your favorite barbecue spot and you had incredible beef ribs and you thought, man, I don't think I could ever make that. That's too complicated. Nonsense. I'm gonna show you how to make a fantastic beef rib right in your own backyard. So let's get into it. All right, so the beef rib is looked at as one of those best bites of Central Texas barbecue. And a lot of these restaurants know that, and that's why they put it on their menus. So as backyard guys, we want to recreate the magic of that beef rib or brisket on a stick that we get at these restaurants. But we want to do it in our own backyards, right? So that's what the aim of this video is going to be, that by the end of this video, you'll be comfortable and feeling like, hey, I can get back there in the backyard and I can make a really decent beef rib. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our beef ribs and we're going to get them trimmed if we need to do any trimming to them, and we're going to get them seasoned up. After that, we're going to get them onto our grill. Now, first part of this cook, we're going to do a cold smoke. Is it really a cold smoke? Cold smoke is really when you're under, say, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. We're not going to go that low. So technically, we're not going to do a cold smoke, but considering that we typically are cooking at 275 degrees, we're going to be considerably less than that. So the terminology of cold smoke is often used, but don't get it twisted. It's not technically a cold smoke, but we're going to have our temperatures down to about 200 degrees for the first part of the cook. Now, how long is that going to take? We're going to do it as long as it takes us to get the correct color on these ribs, as well as making sure that our rub is set on these ribs. I'm going to estimate it's anywhere between 6 to 8 hours before we actually get the first part of this cook completed, okay? Now, moving on to the second part of the cook is gonna be us getting the beef ribs tender, right? We're gonna cook these beef ribs, so we're gonna turn our temperature up. We're gonna go up to about 275 degrees, which is a good comfortable cooking temperature for me. Might be different for you, but 275 is good for me, and that's what I'm gonna do. Now at that point, I'm gonna continue at that 275, monitoring these beef ribs probably every hour, hour and a half or so to get to the tenderness that I'm looking for. I do not care about an internal temperature to tell me when I'm done. It's all gonna be about tenderness and how it feels. So once I get that tenderness that I'm looking for, then I know that it's time to get my ribs off. We're gonna rest them down, we'll get them wrapped up, and then we'll get them into our food warmer so that we can hold them until we're ready to consume them. And that's the game plan for this entire cook, guys. It's gonna be that simple. I absolutely promise you, you can do this. Now, this is what our beef plate ribs look like when they come out of the package. They are a 3-bone variety. You can see 3 long bones here. And you know, hey, here's the heavy membrane on the back, which we will not be taking off. But let's get a better look at these. Okay, so plenty of meat on these ribs. You can see it's got great fat throughout the meat, which makes it a succulent cut. There's really not a lot that we have to do to it, but we're not afraid of that at all. If you get a rack that happens to have a ton of silver skin on, you might want to remove some of that. But as we go through this cook, I'm not really concerned about that silver skin. I don't really have a good amount of hard fat on this beef rib, so I'm really not going to do much to it. All I'm going to do here is kind of just round off the corners. So you have 90-degree angles here on the corner of the rib. So I'm just gonna kind of take that off and round it out just a little bit. I'm not too concerned with it because we are gonna be doing this on a pellet smoker and not on a offset that you gotta really kind of worry about that convection. So yeah, we're just gonna take a little bit off of here. Okay, and now we've got this rib rack trimmed up. Again, we didn't really do a lot to it. There's really not a lot to do on that. And again, we got the membrane here on the back side that we're gonna leave intact. That's gonna help hold these ribs together as we progress through the cook. And yeah, it's really not a big deal. So I'm gonna trim up the other rack, and then I'll meet you back here where we'll get our rub together. All right, guys, let's talk rubs. So now rubs are going to be a personal preference. There's tons, I mean tons of different rubs that are out on the market that you can get into. So definitely feel free to play around and customize this cook. Use what you like on your ribs. Today, I'm going to do a very simple rub that we're going to put together right here. It's only going to be a few ingredients. So let's get this put together. Now what I've got here is some 16 mesh black pepper, and this is just a couple of tablespoons of black pepper here. I've got some kosher salt, and this is also a couple of tablespoons of kosher salt. So if you're keeping score, that's a 1-to-1. And then we've got some seasoning salt. Now seasoning salt, this is a 1 tablespoon. So it's gonna be half by volume to the salt and pepper per ratio. And then we're gonna shake it up. And that's going to be a really good, simple rub to get onto these beef ribs. Okay, so we got our rack here. Now on this second rack, I did actually trim some of the silver skin that was across here, just simply because it was a little bit there that I thought would be better cooked to go ahead and get that off. So that's what we did. Now we're going to get this rib seasoned. Do we need a binder? Absolutely, you don't always need a binder. If your meat is tacky enough that you're gonna put your rub on and that rub is gonna stick and adhere to your meat, you probably don't need a binder. But if you choose to use a binder, you can use whatever you want, whether it's mayonnaise, mustard, soda. Be careful on the sugar content, obviously, different oils or what have you. Now today, we're just going to use water. I literally have just some warm water in my spritz bottle here, and that's what we're going to get put onto our rib here. So I'm just going to give it a good little spritz here with the water, and I'm going to rub it all over. And at that point, this rib is ready to be seasoned. Now, we put together our simple rub here that we got, and we got it swirled around, and all we're going to have to do is just go ahead and apply our rub to these ribs. And that's all it's going to take, guys. We're just going to get this put on here and we're going to press in. Remember, you never want to rub, you want to press in your rub so it stays consistent throughout your meat. We got the sides here, but that's fine. We'll just put a little on our board here and we'll dab the rib down onto the board to pick up our rub. And that's how you get your sides seasoned like that. And we'll do the same thing for the top side of these ribs, as well as the other sides. Okay, a little bit more here on the top. All right, so now we've got our ribs nicely seasoned, but I'm a pepper guy. I want a little bit more pepper on here, so I add just a little bit more pepper to this. Now, one thing to note is that whenever you are seasoning up meat and you want to smoke it, pepper is going to attract that smoke. So don't feel like you can't go a little heavier on your rub with the pepper. Absolutely go for it, play with it, make that rub personal to you and your preference and your palate, and you'll be good to go. So now we've got these beef ribs all seasoned. We got our salt, our seasonal salt. We've got our pepper on here, and this thing is ready to get to the grill. But I'm gonna season up our other rack, and then we're gonna get these on the grill. All right, guys, so we got our ribs all rubbed, seasoned up. They're ready to go onto our grill. Now today we're gonna be using our Pit Boss Titan. That's right, we're using our Pit Boss Titan today, and we're gonna be running it with the Pit Boss brand hickory pellets. So we're gonna get these ribs on. Now normally whenever you fire up a pellet grill, you wanna go ahead and get that grill on and get rid of all the dirty smoke before you get your meat on. Well, today we're doing something a little different. We're gonna utilize the dirty smoke, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but we're gonna get the ribs put on and then we're gonna fire up the grill. All right, so we are at the grill and we're getting it opened up here. And as you can see, the grill is not lit, but we're ready. Now we're gonna be using our rack here. That's gonna be one rack up from the bottom. But we're gonna pull this out a little bit and we're gonna get our ribs placed right onto this rack. And there's our first rack on, and here's second rack on. Now, guys, we've got our ribs placed on our grill. Again, our grill is not lit. We're gonna go ahead and get this thing lit up and see how it goes. All right, we're firing up here. We're gonna get the power put on. Now our power is on to our grill. We are starting this grill up, and we're gonna set this for 200 degrees, guys. That's right, 200 degrees is what we're going for right now. So now our grill is on. We are set to 200 degrees, and that's what's happening. Now again, typically when you start up your pellet grill, you want to go ahead and start that grill up first, but I happen to know there's a lot of barbecue places that utilize a little bit of that dirty smoke to intensify the smoke flavor on their proteins, and that's what we're trying to replicate today with this pellet grill setup the way we're doing it. So again, we just put our ribs on and we got the grill turned on, and it's now going to be starting to feed pellets, and we're going to see some smoke here in a minute, and we're not going to fret. We're not going to be all worried about it because it's not going to cook like that the entire cook. All right, so we're just going to let this thing do what it's doing here, and hopefully we're going to have some really good ribs here by the end of this cook. All right, so let's talk about our game plan for this cook. All right, now we're gonna put this into easy terms. All right, I don't care if you're smoking brisket, ribs, chicken, pork butt, whatever it is. I'm gonna simplify the whole barbecuing process for you, okay? We're gonna break it down into different phases of the cook. Now, I've always said, whenever you're barbecuing, there's only a few steps to it. You smoke the meat, you tenderize the meat, you rest the meat, and you eat the meat. If you break it down into those simple steps, it makes it a lot easier to digest how we do barbecue. This is no different. So let's look at it. The first step, we've already got it all seasoned and everything, and now we're getting it onto the grill. So we're talking about our actual on the pit process, right? You got the meat on. First step is smoke the meat. So at this point, we're smoking the meat to get the color that we want onto our protein, as well as make sure that the rub that we put on this protein is actually adhered. It's set. You'll hear people say all the time, make sure your rub is set. That means that your rub is not flaking off of your protein. You can scratch it with a fingernail, and if it doesn't move, your rub is absolutely set. So if your rub is set and your color is where you want it to be, you have completed the first step or first phase of your barbecue cook. It's time to move on to phase two. Okay, now phase two. What is phase two? Well, phase two is cooking our protein or making it tender, tenderizing it. So what we're gonna do at this point is we've finished the smoking process. Now we're raising our pit temperature to get to our cooking process, right? Now, everybody's cooking process or cooking temperature is gonna be a personal preference. Whatever you cook on your pit may not be the same as what I cook on mine. For me, 275 degrees Fahrenheit is a good comfortable temperature for me to cook at, and so that's why I choose that temperature. You might be a 250 cooker. I mean, it's totally up to you. There's no right, there's no wrong. Don't let anybody tell you that you have to cook at this temperature or that temperature or whatever. No. You cook at the temperature that is comfortable for you and that you are capable of keeping it consistent on whatever grill that you're using. You don't have to use a pellet grill. You could be using a kettle or an offset or a Kamado or whatever it is. But you just want to make sure you can control your temperatures to whatever range is comfortable for you. Now, we're going to get these temperatures in and we're going to make these proteins break down and get tender. So once they've gotten to the tenderness that we're looking for, we know that we have finished that phase two or our second step, and we can move on from there. Okay, now I'll say the second to last step, okay? We'll call it phase three. Phase three is going to be getting our proteins rested. We've already hit the color. We've already made sure that our rub is adhered, our rub is set. We've already got the tenderness that we've wanted with this protein. So we've completed phase one and phase two. Phase three, pull that protein off of your cooker. Okay, once we get that protein off the cooker, we're gonna rest it down on internal temperature. We want that temperature down to about 160 degrees Fahrenheit before we make sure we got this protein wrapped up and then go into our food warmer so that we can consume it later. Now, the food warmer idea, if you don't have a professional food warmer, that's fine, use your oven. But you want to be out of the danger zone. The danger zone is 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. We want to make sure we're above 140 degrees Fahrenheit because we're going to hold this protein until we're ready to eat it. All right. So if I've rested my protein, in this particular case, we've got beef ribs on. If I've rested them down to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm wrapping them up, I'm putting them in my oven. I want my oven to be above 140. For me, I'll go about 150. So I'll set 150 degrees Fahrenheit where those ribs will stay until I'm ready to consume them. That is called holding or resting your protein. And that's what we're gonna do. And that, my friends, is the end of step 3 or phase 3. The only thing left to do after that is to eat it. That's how simple barbecue can be. All right, my friends, we have just hit the 6-hour mark and we're taking a look. So last time I had you here was 6 hours ago. And so this is what our ribs are looking like right now. Now, I literally have not done anything to these ribs. I have not touched them. I have not looked at them. So again, you're seeing it for the first time, just like I am. And we're getting a look at it. You can see a little bit of pooling there, juicing. There was no spritz whatsoever added to this. And again, for us to know if we have completed our first phase of this cook, we need to get the color that we're looking for. Are we happy with this color? That's what you've got to ask yourself. Do you want it a little darker? Are you okay with this color? If for whatever reason you are okay with this color, then you want to look at the rub. Is the rub set? Okay, now I'm moving my finger on this and I can actually see that I am actually moving some rub and it's coming off on my finger. So that's telling me that this rub is not quite set yet. So we have not completed our first phase yet. So we're going to close this grill up. We're going to let it keep going and we'll come back in about maybe an hour or so. All right, guys, here we are at the 7-hour mark, just a little over 7-hour mark, and you can still see we're still rolling at 200 degrees. And we're going to take a look here. And this is what we're looking like. You can see some great pull back there on the bones there. And man, this is coming along. I do actually like the color that's on here. And man, it looks like our bark is pretty much set there. Yeah, it's feeling pretty good. Now what I want to do here is I want to just check to see where we are. I know we're not going to be anywhere near our finishing temperatures or anything like that, or textures, but I know people will want to know. So 175 is where we're at there, 170 on the back side. We're at about 165 on this other, which is a little thicker, 176 there, but definitely still tight and not where we want it to be. So I will say that I do think that we are good to go on this first phase of our cook, and we are ready to progress to the second phase. Okay, so now that we're going to go into our second phase of the cook, as we discussed earlier, we're going to be bumping up our temperature. Now again, we're rolling at 200 degrees. Our color is there, our bark is set, so we're going to raise it. Now typically for me, my comfortable cooking temperature is 275. I'm going to take it up in steps. So I'm going to go 225 here for about 30 minutes, 250 for another 30, and then finish up to 275. I just don't want to shock it by jumping from 200 to 275. Honestly, don't think it will be a big problem if you do. It's just a personal preference. Again, there's no rules in barbecue. You just kind of do what you feel like you want to do. So we're going to raise this temperature up to 275 degrees ultimately, and we're just going to be checking for our tenderness as we go along. I don't know exactly how long it's going to take. Maybe 3 hours, maybe 4, maybe 6, who knows? But we'll check here and there, and I'll let you guys know what's going on. All right, guys, we are back. It is the next day. That's right, we got these ribs off last night and I rested them overnight. Now, the total cooking process that I went through last night was about 10 hours to get my ribs to the tenderness that I was looking for, at which point I pulled them off, got them wrapped up, put some tallow in with our foil, got them wrapped, and we put them into our oven. They rested out for about 2 hours first, just to get that internal temperature down, but then they went in my oven. I set my oven at 155 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's where they rested. So looking at the time now, they've been resting now for a good 12 hours, so they've got a good long rest time, and now it's time to go ahead and get cut into these ribs. Hey guys, right quick, before we get into these ribs, I just want to say, hey, if you're enjoying what you're seeing in this content, if you're finding some sort of value out of it and learning a little something, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Make sure you click that bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. So let's get into these ribs. All right, so here we've got our ribs. They've been double foiled. We're gonna pour some of this tallow right over the top. Just like that. And there we have it. We've got our beef ribs all done. Now we're gonna go ahead and get these ribs cut, because I tell you, it was a very simple process in getting this thing all cooked up, but hey, it's all good. We got our beef rib here. All right, and there we go. I think that's plenty juicy, as you can see there. So yeah, man, definitely a good little cook here. We're gonna get some of this off of here, and I'm gonna go in for this. But guys, hope you enjoyed this video. I've got one listed right here if you want to check into making your own good beef back ribs, and also subscribe to the channel. Cheers.